Hello, I would like to welcome all you screwheads and retards to my first show. Thank you for coming. And let me tell you this. This is going to be a channel devoted to looking at today's news events through a biblical lens. So let's hop right into it, shall we? Of course, the big story is Donald Trump has been found guilty of 34 felonies, and each charge carries a sentence of 4 years. So let's do the math. 4 times 34, 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1, 12, 13. Anyway, I've never been good at math. It's never been one of my strong points in life. But it's a lot of years, isn't it? I think, if I had to guess, the judge will give him 4 years on each count, but then have the sentence run concurrently so that he's looking at a 4-year stint in prison. And the judge will call it mercy. He'll say, well, look, I could have given him 130 years, but instead he just has 4. That's what I'm going to guess is going to happen. But who knows? What do I know? Anyway, this should not come as a huge surprise to us. In fact, it doesn't. I'm sure most of us knew that this whole thing's rigged and he was going to be found guilty. But let's look at it biblically, why it shouldn't come as a surprise to us. And it's because we're a nation that is under God's judgment. And if you go to Romans 1, you can see this. Paul tells us how a nation falls under God's judgment. In other words, when God says, oh, I've had enough of these retards, I'm moving along. And the first one is the sexual revolution, which that's the first indication which we've been through. And the second indication is the homosexual revolution. Again, you go read Romans, Paul lays it all out. I'm not making this up. And after that happens, and we're going through that now, the citizens just start losing their minds. And that's why our nation is now under the leadership of an old dullard. I mean, this is a guy who, if you gave him an IQ test these days, he'd be lucky to break an 80. We are literally being run by a dullard, and the people pulling the strings, are behind him. And it shouldn't come as a surprise. He was voted in. Now, some might say, oh, he wasn't voted in. The election was rigged. And I believe it probably was rigged. But I know this for a fact. He got the majority of the votes. I think if you counted all the votes from all 50 states, he'd win the majority. So that means that half the country, more than half the country, enjoys being governed by a dullard. All right? And again, it's no big surprise. I was watching a story today. There's this guy, a transsexual. He was on TikTok. And, he's dressed up as a woman, and he had his little nose ring, like a bone through his nose. Just a ring. I just call it a bone through his nose because it's a sign of a pagan, right? They got the bones through their noses and the crazy looking earrings covered in tattoos. A real pagan. And he was talking about how men can now give milk, right? And he was saying, he was teaching transsexuals how to milk their coconuts, right? And it was laughable. But the thing is that half the country believes this, that men are capable of milking their coconuts. It's lunacy. That is the third sign of when God, like I said before, God abandons a nation. When a lot of the nation, the majority, go completely insane. They start saying, like Frankenstein's monster, just kind of saying, almost in a guttural fashion, men can milk their coconuts. Men can milk their coconuts. It's insane. Again, it shouldn't come as a huge shock. Now, with that said, Trump did raise a ton of money for his campaign. But he's never going to win. It's impossible. You'll notice that if he goes up in the polls, what's going to happen is maybe the Democrats, the ones in power, the ones pulling the strings, will try to move old Joe out of there and replace him with Michelle Obama. And if that doesn't work, while Trump's languishing in prison, there'll be another Jeffrey Epstein moment. We don't know what happened. The lights went out, the videos went out, and he hanged himself. Right? Nobody knows what happened. Yeah, it's a tragic thing. But we have to, and then, you'll see the people on Fox News saying, yeah, it's sad, but, now we got to move on. We got to move on. And that's what I think is going to happen. Again, what do I know? But that's news with a biblical perspective. All this stuff has been talked about in the Bible. It shouldn't come as a huge shock. When, we have men in high school winning state championships because they decide to become a girl. It's insanity. We have people at school board meetings being put on FBI lists as terrorists because they don't want their children reading gay pornography. So, like I said before, it shouldn't come as a huge surprise. I just wanted to talk about one other story. Again, this is my inaugural video, so I know attention spans are kind of short these days. I wanted to talk about a story I saw a couple months ago, and it was this autistic child on a school bus. And his helper, the school hires people to help these type of children who have difficulties. She's riding with him. She's a black lady, and she's caught on camera smashing the kid in the face with her elbow. Really horrible. I don't want to make this a racial thing, but can you imagine if a white person had been doing that to a black child and smashing him in the face with the elbow? They'd burn down Minneapolis again. I want to take this from a biblical perspective. And right now you have these elites at the top who are trying to bring paganism into our country. And in order to do this, they have to wage war against the white working class and the white working poor and turn us into villains. And in order to do this, they call us all a bunch of racists, a bunch of deplorables, a bunch of clowns that because of our race, because we were born white, even though we can't help it, we were just born this way, that somehow we're intrinsically evil and we have to be eradicated or reprogrammed or re-educated. And it really is, what's happening in the world is really a civil war between two classes of white people. The elites and the globalists versus the rest of us. And it's just not happening in America. You have it also happening in a place like the Netherlands, where they want to shut down the farmers, right? The Netherlands, they are a huge supplier of food, but they want to shut down the farmers, the white farmers, and get us, the working class and the poor whites, eating insects and taking the bus. Again, it shouldn't come as a surprise because again, we can notice this kind of stuff in the Bible. For instance, in Revelation, when the Antichrist comes in, he's going to be a global leader, a one world government. And even to do business, to make a buck and not starve to death, you're going to have his number imprinted on you. Just to make a buck. So again, this kind of stuff shouldn't come as a huge surprise. Anyway, that's my first video. I'm going to try to keep it at 10 minutes in case nobody watches. It might not even be that entertaining. Anyway, that's it for me today. And depending on if anybody watches this crap, I'll do another one or maybe I won't. Bye.